Welcome to part one of my notes on one-step equations. So today we're going to just look at adding and subtracting equations. So we have the blank property of equality says that you are blank the same number to both sides. So look down here. If A equals B, then A plus C equals B plus C. So what property do you think this is? Good, this is the addition. Property of equality says that you are adding the same number to both sides. So you probably heard what you do to one side, you must do to the other. This is called the properties of equality. So next, the blank property of equality says that you are blank the same number from both sides. If A equals B, then A minus C equals B minus C. So this is the subtraction. Property of equality says that you are subtracting the same number from both sides. So solving an equation involves getting the variable by itself by performing the same operation, addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division on both sides of the equation, aka balancing the equation. To solve an equation, we always think about doing the opposite of what is given, or let's put in parentheses, inverse. Okay. Now below, we are going to solve, and we are also going to show our check for the first two. Okay. Now, whenever I say to solve and check on your homework, the check that I'm about to show you with the first two examples is how I would like you to show your check. Okay. So look at the first one. We have x plus 6 equals 11. So whenever we have an addition or subtraction, you will always see me draw an upside down T. And that's so you can keep it separate of what I'm doing to both sides. So the opposite of adding 6 would be subtracting 6. Okay, 6 minus 6 is 0, so I can cancel it out and write a 0. Bring down your x, and 11 minus 6 is 5. Now to check it, we would write down what our answer is. So 5 plus 6 equals 11. Now this is where, if you needed to, you would check this in the calculator. So what's 5 plus 6? Good, 11. So 11 equals 11. It does in fact check, and that means my answer is 5. Okay, moving on to number 2. It's subtraction, so draw your T. The opposite of subtracting 8 is adding 8, so I'm going to add 8 to both sides. And what you might be thinking is, how do these cancel? Because they do, and they equal 0. So bring down your x equals. Now, why do these cancel? Remember, when we were subtracting, when you subtract, it's the same as adding. It's opposite. Okay? So this is really negative 8, because if we did KCC, add its opposite, we would get plus negative 8. So how do you cancel out 8 negatives? 8 positives. So that's why those, in fact, cancel out. And what's 24 plus 8? 32. So x will equal 32. Now let's see if our answer is correct. So it says x minus 8, so we're going to take out the x and put 32 minus 8 equals 24. And 32 minus 8 is 24, so 24 equals 24. The left and the right side both equal each other, then I know it checks. Okay, now, the next 4, even though we're not going to show the check, we still need to check them in our calculator. And even if I tell you on a homework or classwork, if the directions don't tell you to show your check, you would still check it the way I'm going to tell you. So 12 plus x equals 3. So draw your t. And how do you cancel out, whoops, let me draw a better t here. How do you cancel out 12 positives? Good, you would subtract 12 from both sides because 12 minus 12 is 0. Remember, you're trying to get rid of whatever is on the same side as the variable because you want the variable by itself. So x equals 3 minus 12. Make sure you put the subtraction minus 12 on both sides. So 3 minus 12 is -9. Okay, now, if I was checking this in the calculator, I would type in 12 plus 9, and then I would hit the negative key, and then I would hit equals. And if your calculator said 3, you would know it's correct. So it would be helpful if you had a calculator. So if you don't have a calculator, hit pause and make sure you get one. Okay, so now we're going to draw our t because it's addition. And we want to cancel out 15 negatives. So how do you cancel out 15 negatives? Good, you would add 15 positives. Now some of you might be thinking here, why aren't you subtracting? Because you have an addition sign, and that's good thinking. But the reason why we don't subtract here is because that addition sign isn't in front of this. It's 15 negatives. And we know that when we want to cancel out 15 negatives, we add 15 positives. So that equals 0. Bring down your x, and -3 plus 15 equals 12. So now that you have your calculator, let's see if you can do this. So type in 15 negative plus 12 and hit equals. If you get -3, then we know we did it right, and you should have got -3. If you're having trouble checking these, please ask me when you're done with these notes. Okay, the next one, draw your t, and now the variable's on the right side, but that's okay. So how do you cancel out 2 negatives? Good, you can add 2 positives. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides. And the 2's cancel. And -15 plus 2 is -13 equals x. Or x equals -13. Because in the past, you've always heard to get the variable on the left side. So you can write it like this and then just rewrite it as x equals -13. But I would accept both answers. So if you write it this way or this way, I would accept both. So that's why we're writing both in our notes. Now, some of you are probably thinking, well, why didn't you subtract? Because it was adding. Okay. You could have subtracted -2. But remember, and you don't have to write this, remember when you subtract -2, okay, let's put a number out here. Remember when we did KCC? That would turn into +2. Okay, so because that turns into +2 like that, that's why we're adding 2 to both sides. Because if you subtract -2, that's the same as adding +2. Okay, and the last example. Draw your t. Okay, now this is a special case. So what you can do whenever you're subtracting a negative, we can go ahead and do KCC. So now this problem says 11 equals x plus 23. Now how do you cancel out 23? Subtract 23, because the opposite of adding is subtracting. The 23's cancel and give me 0. And 11 minus 23 is -12. So -12 equals x, or x equals -12. Now, some of you are thinking, probably, why didn't you add? Well, I could have added -23 to both sides, but isn't adding -23 the same as subtracting 23? Yes. So you could add -23 to both sides, or do what we did here. We did KCC and then did the opposite of adding 23, which was subtracting 23. Both ways are perfectly acceptable. Okay? So make sure that you are canceling out and doing the same to both sides. Okay, that concludes our notes on adding and subtracting one-step equations. I hope you have a great day.